What's going on, my fellow Let's Draw Some followers here on YouTube? Um, I had to put somebody on the spot here. I tried to do the live on Facebook, so it's a big fuck you to them viewers that was on Facebook. You had 5 viewers in there, and then when I started just doing the subject of this video, doing it down, I had zero. So a big F you to y'all that tuned in quickly and then dipped out. Why I don't know, but I should have stuck with my first mind and did this on YouTube. Anyway, this is Craig L. Smith II here, born and raised 773, relocated to the 901, trying to make sure our things is done. Then I relocated to the 256 to put up with the hit and miss. And now that I'm back in my second stint, the 662, y'all definitely know how I do. This past Monday, the professional wrestling world lost a legend by the name of Scott Hall. Uh, he passed away. His family, his family gathered around. They took him off life support. Was nothing else they could do. He passed away. He left us at the age of 63. From what was his cause of death, it was related to, a blood clot had decided to cut loose and kind of make way to his heart, and he suffered 3 heart attacks after a complication of a hip surgery. From complications from hip surgery, he fell and broke his hip. So, and like I said, after, when you suffer 1 heart attack, that's enough. But when you suffer two, or when you suffer three, that's it. Now, had he survived and been taken off life support, he'd been a vegetable. He'd been able to look around, stuff like that, but wouldn't have been able to see, but been able to talk, wouldn't have been able to do nothing. He would have been in a vegetative state. Because your heart is the major muscle. So and originally I was supposed to be doing this broadcast. Matter of fact, that late night Monday night to early Tuesday morning, but I never got a chance to. So I'm finally going ahead and doing it now. For all the professional wrestlers out there, everybody remember Scott Hall as Razor Ramon. Uh, yeah, man, so did I. But what a lot of people don't know is, hey, I remember Scott Hall when he was he had stints in the NWA. He was down here in Memphis for a good minute. He's down here in Memphis for a good minute. Then AWA, I think he was in Memphis before or during his AWA, before, after, or during his AWA run. And then later on, he came back to the NWA. So to kind of get things started on. Also, and by the way, I got to share a little story. When Scott Hall made his debut, I was going on 14 years old. Depending on when he made his debut, I got to look on the bio. He made his debut in October '92, so I was a freshman at Hamilton at that time at the age of 13. So Hamilton High School in Memphis, and then later on, 93 sophomore, junior, senior year, I went to Southside. So yeah, he was, people like to remember him from his informative WWF years and stuff like that. Uh, hey, I remember, like I said, I remember from that and elsewhere. The Razor Ramon gimmick was Razor was the man, especially back in late '94, early '95. So in most of '95, he was kind of say he was just about as old as Hulk Hogan, just about on par. But he left for WCW, and that's why I said I'm gonna share a little moment in history on that. And he, along with Kevin Nash, they revolutionized a lot of things and stuff. With like the favored nations clause for all contracts, make sure everybody, even the younger guys, get guaranteed money, so they wouldn't get fucked over in the business. And again, excuse my language from earlier. It was the truth, and excuse my language most time in this video because just speaking real. Looking on Scott Hall's bio, he was an army brat. He was born the only child. His father was a his father was in the army, and his mother, his mother was a military mom. So he was actually born 70 miles south of Washington, of our nation's capital. So, and then he said he attended high school in Munich, Germany, West Germany. So he graduated high school from there, and you know, but from his bio, he was the only child, and for what he said in interviews, despite the fact that his father was an abusive alcoholic, he had to portray the good guy act with the serves, but behind closed doors. His dad was pretty. His dad was abusive alcoholic, and they said his mom at times she was alcoholic too. But the good thing about it was, hey, he never went without. He wasn't worrying about. He wasn't asking his mother why the lights was off, or why we're eating food and stuff like that. That's not up to par and stuff like that. I can relate to him on some things, about like with the father, with the father issues and stuff like that, because I've publicly documented on my Let's Draw on Somethings about how my father was and stuff like that. There were times my mom went hungry. My mom went to bed hungry to make sure I was straight, which she didn't have to do. I ate mashed potatoes that was like that wasn't creamy, but they were water based. It was gross, but had to eat what I had to eat. I mean, yep. Here my mom and I was. We One point we were in the dark. I was in the dark. Lit in the radio, listen to radio stuff like that, and I'm eating uh water based mashed potatoes, chicken gizzards. I'm not a fan of chicken hearts, and some cornbread and hot water cornbread. But I can relate to Scott on some things about what he said about his dad in the interview, and everything. And early in his personal life, a lot of people don't know it. He was charged with he was about to be charged with second degree murder, because a guy had came up to him, and because a guy, guy stepped, kind of stepped to him and stuff like that, and when starts some shit with him, and he got an altercation in nightclubs. He's a bouncer, so the dude, so basically, Hall was charged with second degree murder after he shot the man with his own gun. But it was done in self-defense. So the charges was dropped due to lack of evidence. And ESPN did a little thing on Scott Hall back in 2011, and said that he was unable to forget that incident, which triggered later on post traumatic stress disorder. So hey, that PTSD, man, let me tell y'all something. That's nothing to play with. Military veterans suffer from it, whether they've been to the war base or not. I've gone on a mission and said that I suffer from a little disorder, this social disorder, and some PTSD, because it's some things I can, and it's some things I couldn't, things in my personal life I can't, I was unable to forget, unable to forget nor forgive some folks for what they did to me. But that's another little different story. So he was uh with the lack of evidence, Scott was not charged with the murder then. But had he been charged with murder, we wouldn't have been knowing about him today in the wrestling world. But he got his start, as far as his wrestling career went. He got his start in NWA back in the National Wrestling Alliance territories for a year from 84 to 85. And when he was in the Florida territory, championship wrestling from Florida, CWF, him and Dan Spivey, him and Dangerous Dan Spivey. Now, if y'all know who Dan Spivey is, he was one half of the Skyscrapers, and was also the character in WWF, Waylon Mercy. So Waylon Mercy, if I remember correctly, was like, lives are in Waylon Mercy's hands. You know what I mean? And they had something going there with that character. And he based that Dan Spider I'm talking about. He based that Waylon Mercy character on Robert De Niro's portrayal in Cape Fear. So and then Dusty, like I said about like with Dusty Rhodes, uh, he called he had Hall and Spivey team up as American Starship, and he was trying to get them to be like the, like how the Road Warriors was. But I mean, let's face it. Hey, I grew up watching Road Warriors too. Who came at your counter them dudes. So Road Warriors bar none's the best. Got rest in peace to Hawk and Animal. So American Starship, they were booked. Dusty had them under contract, under some type of contract, and but they were still getting, they were getting paid a little bit more than everybody else. But a lot of folks didn't know. So and they said the highlight in the looking at it on here, my little source, it said when they were in when they were American Starship was in Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling, they lost to the Minnesota Wreck Crew, Arn Anderson and Ole Anderson, uh, for the NWA Tag Team Championship. So uh, Scott, he would later leave for the Kansas City territory for a minute in '85, and he had a little brief stint um, in '85, but then he returned. But then he shortly returned to the Carolinas, and he jobbed. He was basically a job promotion. So then later on, after that, he went to the American Wrestling Association (AWA), and he later went from being just regular Scott Hall to Magnum Scott Hall. Because if you looked at Scott Hall a little bit, because he had the mustache, you thought the dude he could have passed for Tom Selleck, straight up. He could have, because Magnum PI was show back then. Back I think '85, it premiered in '85, '86. Somebody cite me on that correction. And then he went from being known as Magnum Scott Hall to later Big Scott Hall. So him and Kurt Hennig, got another late wrestler, got rest his soul. They formed up a tag team and became the AWA World Tag Team Champions for a while, and and they lost the belts to Playboy Buddy Rose and Doug Summers. And some little unexplained and unusual deviation from the standards of basically a bending of a rule in pro wrestling with a title defense. And Hennig and Hall lost them belts on May 17th of '85. So and everybody said, hey, I remember watching American Wrestling Association also, because he used to come on ESPN, AWA. He used to come on ESPN and such. And shout out to Sabian Hayes, my road up in Chicago. He said AWA wrestling was phony, but yeah, if you listen to the stories about how Vern Gagne used to pay the guys off, um, you'll see why it was what it was. But but some of them guys had days off, because like they took, I think it was Jesse Ventura or somebody said it. They said most of the guys had the summer off, so they could spend time with their families, recover their bodies and stuff like that. As long as they, whatever, if they felt the need to take some bookings, that was on them. You know. So brother Scott, uh, after they lost the belts, Vern Gagne wanted to put the AWA World Heavyweight Championship on him, but he was flattered. But then he said he hated the cold weather in the territory. It was up in Minnesota, and he saw the the AWA as a sinking ship. So he had left for the NWA in 1989. Now, also during that period, from the time when he was with the AWA from '85 to '89, he he received a tryout with the World Wrestling Federation then in 1987 of August. And then he received, and back and also in 1990, he received another tryout at WWF Wrestling Challenge taping in Fort Myers, Florida. So, but sadly, at the event, he was defeated by Paul Roma, who would 3 years later join up in WCW. Paul Roma now would join up in WCW and become a member of the three of the four of the horsemen, with three of the four horsemen. There was no fourth one. So, but the company didn't sign him. Okay, so during that time, after he left AWA, he went to World Championship Wrestling, WCW. He was brought in by Jim Ross, good old JR, as part of a NWA's initiative to develop new and young stars. Also, the ones was Brian Pillman and Psycho Sid Vicious, who, if I'm not mistaken, if it was announced, it was announced that Queen Charmel, Booker T, shout out to him, Booker T's wife, would be inducted in the Hall of Fame. Um, Sid Vicious is going to be inducted in as well, and it is well deserved because, man, if it wasn't for Sid Vicious, man, Booker T and Stevie Ray wouldn't be as popular as they was in WCW. So, but anyway, with Scott Hall, he made his debut on a June 3rd, 1989 edition of World Championship Wrestling, and he was known as Gator Scott Hall. He had scaring alligators and playing volleyball, on the beach, riding boats and fishing and all the other jazz. So his first match, he teamed up with Playboy Randy Rhodes when they lost the match to the Freebirds. And then it said he continued to wrestle on the road and was winning some tag team single action, facing people like the Freebirds, his old tag team partner Dan Spivey, Norman the Lunatic, who all remember that, and he had a successful house show series with Bill Irwin. Then he finally made his TV debut on July 9th, and he was beat by the Great Muta. So, and then he also faced Terry Funk, got beat. And his debut came in the Great American Bash Glory Days. He participated in a Battle Royal. Then he began jobbing on a regular basis, losing to people like the Great Muta, Mike Rotunda, Sid Psycho Sid, Ron Simmons, and Hacksaw Butch, God rest his soul, Hacksaw Butch Reed, or he went from being the natural Butch Reed and Hacksaw. So he dipped after his final match was back in November of '89. He lost to Butch Reed in a house show, and then he kind of laid low for a while. And Scott, from '90 to '91, he started wrestling over in Japan and with international promotions and stuff like that. Then he wrestled from 90 for a year from 90 to 91. He went to wrestle. He had a short little stint in Puerto Rico. He lost the World Wrestling Council, the WWC Caribbean Heavyweight Championship at a Super Medic 3 pay-per-view on April 20th, 1991. So, which leads to his return to WCW because he was under this stable known as the Diamond Mine that was managed by It's Me, DDP. That's right, Diamond Dallas Page. He was managed by him. He became the diamond. He became the Diamond Stud. He went from being the blonde guy to he actually adopted that Razor Ramon look with the slick back black hair, the spit curl, and the 5 o'clock stubble and stuff like that. Both in. So uh, he had a gimmick. He had a gimmick that's similar to Rick Rude and stuff like that, where the woman would come in there and take his tights off and stuff, take his attire off, strip his attire off, and stuff like that. He had a successful stint there the first time in 91, 92, but uh, he had formed some short-lived tag teams with Vinny Vegas, who will be known as his best friend Kevin Nash, aka Big Daddy Cool Diesel, aka the Big Sexy Giant Killer. and also Scotty Flamingo, aka Johnny Polo from WWF, and he would later go to ECW to become Raven. So during that little short time in 90, he entered the year of 92, then he began a feud with Dustin Rhodes for a minute. And it was a little nice little angle where they was going to add him through to the Dangerous Alliance stable, but it fell through. And Scott Hall, he left WCW, for again after a final television match on Ron Campbell. So now we enter in the WWF, in which Scott Hall said in various interviews that Vince McMahon had some little gimmick plan for him, and Kurt Hennig was sitting, and Scott was saying in the interview that Kurt Hennig was sitting right beside him. So he told his man it was gonna be it was gonna be Razor Ramon, but it was gonna be something a little bit different. He wanted him to do this and do that or something like that. So Scott Hall told him, he said, "Hey, I'm gonna base this character off of Scarface." Told him Montana. He asked Vince, have you ever seen Scarface? He was like, "No, I haven't." So I think Scott made him, had him watch Scarface. Vince liked every little bit of the movie, and and also in the spin because I believe Scott Hall was not the first person to make Vince, sit and watch a movie and make him relate to something. Kevin Nash told this story about he took Vince to go see the movie Heat with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. And Nash was basing, after he had after he had jumped on Bret Hart in '95 at the end of the '95 Survivor Series. After he jumped on Bret, he came out and cut a promo on the following night talking about, "I ain't, doing this and doing that. I'm back to being Big Daddy Cool Diesel." And he said, I got one more thing to say. He said, "I ain't about to be shaking and slapping hands with anybody." He said, "But if I am, you better have a black glove on because I know you with me." So Kevin uh took Vince about it. He explained the character to him. And this is like months before. This is like, because I think they was about to go a direction because at the time WCW was about to start kicking Vince's ass. So to make a long story short, y'all, you know, Kevin explained the whole story to Vince about the movie. So he asked Vince, said, "Who you gonna cheer for?" He said, "De Niro or Pacino." He was like, "Well, shit, Pacino." He said, "Okay, but when you look further into the movie, I think Kevin had said that Vince pulled him over the side. He said, 'Fuck, I'm gonna cheer for De Niro on this one.'" And like Nash is like, exactly. That's how he was taking that direction with his Big Daddy Cool character. So anyway, with this Razor gimmick, um, you know, he had Vince told Vince, he sold Vince on the idea about with the Tony Montana thing. So he said, Tony Montana said, "Say hello to my little friend." So Scott Hall came up and said, "Say hello to the bad guy," you know, and it worked. So he made his debut in '92. And I mean, he shit right off the bat, man, he got in some little he got in some good little feuds. I mean, he started a feud with the Macho Man. And then what a lot of people don't know, uh, he also was part of the last Heenan family stable. Yeah, so that's heavy. And the last Heenan family stable concluded of Bobby the Brain Heenan, Nature Boy Ric Flair, Kurt Hennig, and Mr. Scott Hall. So out of all them four of them members, only one remains, and that's Rick. That's Slick Rick. So that's what a lot of people don't want to talk about, man. Scott Hall was the last member, was part of the last Heenan family stable back in '92. So so he had a few little good little profile runs and stuff like that. And then also, hey, Survivor Series '92. People don't, if anybody remember the backstory on that. Hold on a second. anybody remembers the backstory on that, it was supposed to be the Ultimate Maniacs of Macho Man Randy Savage and Ultimate Warrior taking on Ric Flair and Razor Ramon in a tag team match main event. But plans changed because the Ultimate Warrior, he got busted for HGH. HGH is steroid. He got busted for HGH and stuff like that. So Vince had to make some plans, had to make change to the plan. So, and also look it up. Type in your YouTube search engines, Mr. Perfect Face Turn, and you're gonna see how that all came about. And that was some damn good writing. That was some damn good writing on when it was just only Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson booking and producing the shows. So that was a nice little swerve, but it was more like you didn't see that coming. And I gotta rank that babyface turn second to when Dusty Rhodes, and me being a little kid after Magnum TA had his car accident on, get this, October 14th, 1986. That was the day I turned 8 years old. And when Dusty Rhodes had came on, I think it was on the same week or the week later, he said he needed a tag team partner for this cage match. And Dusty said, when I found me a partner, and that's Nikita Koloff. And as an 8-year-old at the time, my eyes got big. I was like, whoa. Like, wow. Yeah. I was excited because, man, now Nikita Koloff was the man too, So, but I advise you all to check out, type in the search engine on YouTube, Mr. Perfect Face Turn. And you're going to love it. You're going to love it. So, in 92, he was kind of out of the shuffle for a while. And then starting in 93 with Scott Hall, he got into a feud with Bret Hart back in Royal Rumble 1993. They said it was a good match. It was a great match. And I watched it. It was a damn good match, man. I advise you guys to check that out as well. So and then he had a hit and miss at WrestleMania 9. He pinned Bob Backlund with a roll up. So on May 17th. Oh, and by the way, I felt, so I was about to I'm gonna go ahead and make this two-parter because I'm about to turn it in, guys. So this is gonna be part 1 of 2. So back on the May 7th, on the May episode of Raw, Razor got beat by the 1-2-3 Kid, who would eventually who was aka Sean Waltman. So that started a feud between the two, and the feud was so and then it carried on in the King of the Ring tournament and triggered and it started triggering into a slow baby face for Razors. He started to gain some respect for 1-2-3 Kid and support for the crowd. But also during this time, Ted DiBiase, Money Inc., Ted DiBiase, and IRS didn't show no respect for Razor because you say, basically saying Razor's supposed to be tough. You gonna let a jobber come in and beat you, and you gonna show him respect. Well, I ain't got no respect for you. So, and that accumulated in a feud with Ted DiBiase, and when Razor attacked Ted DiBiase, that solidified him turn babyface. But not only that, he helped the 1-2-3 Kid beat Ted DiBiase. So they had an opening match, Ted DiBiase against Razor Ramon. Razor Ramon beat him, and it was also DiBiase's final match in the WWF. And on a side note, it was Ted DiBiase's final match with WWF, but he would go on to Japan, making some bread with Stan Hansen by winning the New Japan Pro World Tag Team Championships. And after that, he had to get his, DiBiase got his personal life in order. So, heading in 93, Razor was on the roll. He had Survivor Series going on, stuff like that. And he had a Survivor Series team that introduced the very guy that he couldn't beat. Yeah, look at the Macho Man Randy Savage. Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. So he had a Survivor Series team that consisted of Razor Ramon, 1, 2, 3 Kid, Marty Jannetty, and Macho Man Randy Savage. So Razor ended up being on the losing end of that team. They had Adam Bomb, Diesel, and IRS, and I forgot who else it was. Um, Macho and Hall end up being the losers, and Janetti and 1, 2, 3 Kid end up being the winners for his team. 4-2, they beat them. So, and then on to that, but prior to that, before that Survivor Series, he Razor won the Intercontinental Championship back in '93 and '96. Don't want to go on and on. With the back, he had a little back. He pretty much had a matter of fact. I'm gonna go on with this because I'm gonna pause it here and I'm gonna resume. That's why I said it's gonna be 2 parts. So I'm gonna talk about most of his WWE run, and part 2 is gonna be his WCW run, and later on in the year. So because I'm about to turn in for bed. So but prior to his Survivor Series matchup, he had won the vacated Intercontinental title in a 20-man battle royal in which he pinned Rick Martel to win the Intercontinental title. That's when he started a feud with Shawn Michaels and everything, who claimed that he never lost the belt because he was stripped due to inactivity. And really, Shawn Michaels was suspended. He said he was suspended during the time because allegedly he pissed hot on the drug test. So, depending on who you believe, if you want to believe WWE's story about him, about him pissing hot for steroids or something like that, Shawn denied. He said, "Hey, I ain't." He said, "I ain't never took steroids, never." But Shawn admitted that he did, but he was blowing his nose with the blow on several occasions. So, Razor and HBK would start a feud, which lead to a ladder match against between the two at WrestleMania 10, in which was voted as the 1994 match of the year. Boy, what a fun year that was for me in high school, my sophomore year in high school. So he beat HBK in that ladder match. And then it was then prior to that, he was defending the belt everywhere and all this and that. So Razor continued to feud with HBK and Big Daddy Cool Diesel. And on April 30th episode of Superstars, he lost the Intercontinental title to who? Diesel. That's right. So here's my thing. Now, back in the day when WWF Superstars, they air stuff like this. And I'm gonna say WWF programming back in the day is better than this shit now. I'm being straight up. It's being better than what it is now. So excuse me, y'all. So I mean, come on, we had got Razor versus Diesel for Intercontinental Championship, and then turn around a couple months, several months later down the road. I remember my late grandmother Ann Smith and my cousin Quentin Delane. We was all at the house, all at my grandma's house watching when we watched Bob Backlund against Bret Hart for the WWF World Championship. That was rare because to see a title match happen on syndicated television, title matches and some good pay-per-view quality, but before Monday Night Raw, SmackDown style main event matches was on Peacock and all that other jazz. Man, it was all on syndicated television, and that's why that was a good times to be a professional wrestling fan. Whether if you follow NWA or WWF, that was a good time to catch their program. So, but I know down in because my late grandmother, she lived in Cuba, Alabama. They had got more WWF. They had got more WWF programming than anything. But the channels is limited and stuff like that. So, um, she lived in a part of Alabama called Cuba, Alabama, Cuba/York, Alabama, and we would always pick up, Meridian, Mississippi news stations and stuff like that. But anywho, continuing on, Razor, he would, defend his champion, the IC title, stuff like that. He beat Diesel at SummerSlam '94, and he had the late Walter Payton in his corner. Then the Survivor Series, he captained another Survivor Series team that featured Sean Waltman, David Boy Smith, and the Hair Shrinkers. So, and they faced the team of the Teamsters known as Shawn Michaels, Diesel, Owen Hart, late Jim Danville, Neidhart, and Jeff Jarrett. So, all of them. So, Razor Ramon ended up being the sole survivor in the match of this because all of them got counted out. And then he started a feud with Jeff Jarrett heading in the next year, lost the Intercontinental title to Jeff Jarrett in controversial fashion in '95 Royal Rumble. And, and then he faced Jeff Jarrett again in the rematch. So let me see here. So he won the match by disqualification, but then he got, but he would later get the belt back by beating Jeff Jarrett and Road Dogg Jesse James in the handicap match. So so like I said, summer '95, all of '95, man, Scott Hall was kind of Scott Hall was on fire. So he and then in WWF history, he became the first man to win the Intercontinental title championship 3 times. Then he turned around, he re-lost the title to Jeff Jarrett. Then he suffered a rib injury during a ladder match against Jeff Jarrett, so he couldn't perform. So he formed a team with Savio Vega. And, I like Savio Vega too. And shit. That was nice little chemistry. Savio and Razor. And so Razor was managing Savio throughout the King of the Ring tournament, which unfortunately he lost to Savio Vega lost to Mabel. Then they turned around, they lost the Men on the Mission In Your House 2 to Lumberjacks. And then they lost the WWF World Tag Team Championship match to Owen Hart, God rest their souls, Owen Hart and Yokozuna. So he had another Intercontinental Championship ladder rematch from WrestleMania 10 at SummerSlam 95 that year, but this time he lost. This one, as they always say with some movies, the sequel ain't as better ain't as good as the first. So 9 times out of 10 is as good as the first, and 9 times out of 10 it's not as good as the first. So this ladder match from SummerSlam '95 wasn't as good as the first one. Notable, it was different little spots in the movie. Different little spots in that match, but it didn't live up to par from WrestleMania 10. One from WrestleMania 10, and to me, and honestly, I have to agree because the first WrestleMania match between HBK and Shawn Michaels was better than the second. So then he began a feud with Dean Douglas. He beat Dean Douglas for the In-House 4 to win the Intercontinental Championship after Michaels had just forfeited the title to Douglas. So the win made him a 4-time Intercontinental champion in WWE history, first one. So we're heading into my nice little year, 1996, in which he started a feud with Dustin Rhodes, aka Gold Dust. Because Gold Dust started a feud with my games talking about some he love him some Razor. He said because he oozes more, his oozing machismo, and it was all the other little stuff. So you know, and Hall admitted in a interview, he said that he had nothing personal against Dustin Rhodes because his dad, Dustin Rhodes' father, Dusty, got him his start. But he just didn't feel comfortable working that gimmick and wrestling against him in that gimmick at WrestleMania. Now, before that, like I said WrestleMania. Before that, he lost the Intercontinental title at the Royal Rumble, and originally he was supposed to be scheduled to face Goldust in a rematch for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania 12 in a main street fight. But Scott Hall was suspended for about a month for pissing hot in the drug test. But he would eventually returned to WWF television in April at the In Your House, where he lost to Vader. Sadly, now that technically was his last pay-per-view match, his last televised match against Vader. And by right it is. But he also got in trouble for, being associated with the Clique, which consists of HBK, Nash, and Triple H, Paul Levesque, and Sean Waltman. So Razor was involved in a scene called the Curtain Call. And I'm pretty sure most of y'all have heard many of this, ranging from the great Brian Last talking about it and Jim Cornette. Shout out to both of those guys about the Curtain Call. Cornette said he was pissed as hell when that happened. That you draw a line between baby faces and heels. Y'all just can't go out there and just hug and stuff like that. Do it out of I do it away from eyes length. You know, and if you go, if you go, hey, good luck, hey, hope to see you there, stuff like that, or whatnot. They should have did that. They should have did that private. That curtain call incident. They should have done that privately. So, but yeah. So so they broke kayfabe by celebrating and embracing the ring together. And despite the fact that their characters were supposed to be portrayed as enemies. So but later, during the backstory on that, I think Scott Hall has said that he had signed with Eric Bischoff back in either January, I believe in January or February. So in his last house show, he said, prior to his last house show, Scott Hall said that Vince didn't come to him about some more bread, about what you're gonna do about your bread, because he was on this contract, and Scott Hall's on a contract, and it rolled over every year, every year, every year. So he wanted some more bread, wanted some more money and stuff like that. So Vince told him, you make most of your money off your merchandise sales. Okay, which that makes sense. That's basically, you know, what you get from your base pay, your WWE contract. That's what you take home, and your merchandise sales be like your per diem for your hotel if you're gonna be on the road, whatever, doing what you gonna do. Ow. Excuse me, y'all. Uh, well, take care of your family. Hall, he wanted more money. He told a story about an MSG. Said, don't go. The crowd was chanting, don't go, don't go, don't go. And then he was looking at the crowd and he did a little money sign. And he was telling one of the guys, said, hey, tell him to give me some more money. I'll stay for y'all. And he pointed to the back. He pointed to Vince. So Hall said that Vince, when Hall went to the back, so Hall said something about some. He basically said, say goodbye to the bad guy. And he said he went to the back. Vince chewed him out. And Vince chewed him out, said, damn it, you still on the contract with me. He said, how much he said, how much money WCW give? How much money you want? He said, Vince, you never asked me. And his head can by right, because Vince didn't ask Scott Hall what was going on. Vince didn't ask him, hey, what's up with your money situation and stuff like that. The WCW, and I fall in line with that philosophy. I always had what Hall say, hey, if you don't ask me shit, I'm not gonna tell you nothing. And that's how he was, straight up. Uh so I guess Scott Hall told him, and he said, hey, if how much money is Bischoff giving? He said, okay, well, since you asked, he showed him the figure, and he's like, and Scott Hall said, Vince said, shit, I can't match that. So he was gone. So, he joined, and along with Kevin Nash soon later joined, because Kevin Nash was fed up after the incident with him and Bret Hart. Something that happened. Look that up. I think what led to it. So Kevin Nash told Scott, he said, shit. He said, man, he said, hey, I'm gonna join you. Fuck this. But he went to WCW, but Scott Hall later would say that he went to WCW not for the money, but because they offered him some numerous days off. Hell, I would too, because if you're gonna give me some good days off, man, so I can prepare my shit with my old lady and my son and daughter that don't know me, but other folks' kids know me. Hell yeah, I jump on that shit. So with that in the nutshell like that there, um I said in that, which is gonna be part two when he comes to with WCW. Because again, I'm gonna cut this short because I'm gonna turn it in. I got some stuff I gotta do later on this morning. Um this is a two-parter. May 26, 1996 was when I graduated high school. And the next following night, on May 27, 1996, in a WCW live event, some guy show up with a blue jean vest on, blue jean pants, fanny pack around the front. He coming out of the crowd, Scott Hall. It made everybody think. It was making all of us think like, oh shit, WWF getting ready to finally invade WCW. Nope. This is a precursor of things to come that I'm going to talk about in part two later on today. And I'll give my thoughts on my honest opinion about old brother Scott, old Scott Oliver. So with that being said, y'all, this is part one. My Scott Hall tribute is gonna be part two, which will be tomorrow. So till then, if y'all catch y'all some sleep, rest well, sleep well, good night, good morning. And also, hold on a second. And also, God bless. This is Craig S. Smith II here, and I'll be back with part two later on. All right, later.